Hey guys, Dan here with Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
It is time once again for Dan Does Disney, and Tim and I now are going to talk about the second full-length feature of the True Life series. This is called The Vanishing Prairie. We did The Living Desert last time. Well, not last time, but last time we did a documentary.
Yeah.
Um, and so this was a year later, 1954, and this one as well won the best documentary at the Oscars. What was the total? Was there four of them, Tim, that won?
I think maybe it's either three or four.
Okay, and then two of the shorts won as well.
Yes. The previous year, the short and the feature both won, I think, right?
That's right. Yeah, because that was the final year, the final short that they did, and the full length were the same year. So, yeah. So now Walt is firmly entrenched in doing the features. They didn't do any more of the True Life shorts. So, last time we talked a lot about sort of the history of the True Life nature documentary, but this time I've actually got some background on this specific one.
I didn't really look that much into it this time
Yeah,
around.
the wiki is almost bare.
Yeah, I looked at Wiki and IMDb. I did my two sites I look at, and I was like, okay.
Yes, I found a few sites that actually had quite a bit of information about this one. So, so let's talk about it. First of all, this was made for a little less than $400,000, and it ended up making 1.75 million domestically. So big hit, big returns for Walt. And we talked last time.
Did that beat the previous one? I know the previous one made like 2 mil, but was that global?
That's a good question. And also, this one was reissued by itself in theaters, and I don't believe the other one was. So I'm not sure if that total is just for the 1954 release or for all the releases.
Oh.
So I'm not actually sure. But I also didn't have a budget for the last one, so I'm not sure how it would have compared, gross wise anyway. But it opened in theaters. Tim, you'll appreciate this. With the short ahead of it was from Make My Music, the whale that wanted to become an opera singer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thing was the short that they ran before that.
That's a weird short to put in front of this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe because there's an animal theme. Not that this is water related at all. It's
No.
opposite really, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure what the logic was there, but so it was reissued once in the 60s. I'm not sure what year, because one article I read said 64, one said 68. But I think it only had the one reissue, and then it was reissued in 71 in the double feature that we talked about last time with The Living Desert. And then we talked about this last time too, how they broke up most of these movies into educational shorts. So this one was made into 4 educational shorts in 1962. It's interesting though, because the Living Desert ones weren't made into educational shorts till 74. So a full 12 years later, that's actually, I think, the last one they made into educational shorts was Living Desert.
Maybe it has something to do with figuring out how they want to split it up, because I mean, we can talk about it later, but I feel like this one focused it on one particular thing for a really long time.
Yeah, that's true. That could be. Well, and don't forget, they also did, I forget what year we said it was, but the like compilation that they did, with 13 different scenes from the different True Life adventures. So this one started out in 1951. This is when Walt was still doing the shorts, and it was originally a short called Bighorn Sheep. And then since they were sort of morphing more into the feature length, he commissioned a couple other shorts that made up this movie then. So it was The Cat Family was going to be its own short. Prairie Story was its own short. So I guess maybe that's the Prairie Dog part.
Yeah.
So with the success of Living Desert, he decided to just, kind of put them all into a feature length. More than a dozen nature photographers were credited with work for the film. and they went all over. Tim probably, or I don't know if you do or not, Tim, since there was no information on Wiki, but Tim may have the locations of some of these. No, okay. So they shot, I know in Yellowstone, they shot in Wisconsin for a bit. They shot a little bit in Canada. So they went kind of all over the place. Nebraska, I think, was one of the sites. And one of the main photographers, Tom McHugh, to get some of the up close and personal buffalo shots, actually wore a buffalo costume and ingratiated himself with this herd of buffalo. And his theory was they just thought he was some weird looking buffalo, but they still like kind of accepted him. And so he was able to get a lot of those really close up shots because of that.
Okay.
Which I thought was pretty wild. So footage was shot originally in 16 millimeter. They moved it to 35 millimeter and blew it up for the movie. But some effects were actually added in. Some of the weather effects, like rain and fog in some scenes, were added in by special effects man Ub Iwerks, who goes back to the 20s with Disney. I've seen his name pop up in a lot of the like 20s and 30s shorts at Disney. So he was a living legend there. But he punched it up a little bit, which I don't know. We'll get into that. I don't feel great about that. But and then the other thing was they shot 70 times more footage than what was actually in the film. So yeah, I mean, with this nature stuff, I guess a lot of it is sort of, wait and see. So they just sort of set the camera up. And luckily by that point, Disney was an established enough studio that they were able to just, fork out the money for that. And like we talked about last time, Walt had parted ways with RKO. So he was, this is Buena Vista Pictures. He was financing everything by himself.
Yeah, I mean, and they also filmed on 16 millimeter instead of 32, so that saves them some money.
Yeah, I think that's why they did the 16 originally and then blew it up to 35. But yeah, so that's. Oh wait, I have one other thing. I'm sure you'll talk about this scene. But there were protests among the release of this movie. Do you add any idea as to what might be protested in this movie, Tim? Because there's nothing real, I think, offensive, but there were some religious and social groups, calling for the boycott of this movie. In fact, the premiere was banned in New York because of this.
I mean, the only controversial thing that I really thought was, them using the term "red man" to refer to Indians.
No,
Native,
of course not.
or they use the term "red man" and Indians for Native Americans.
Nope.
But I mean, if no one's protesting Peter Pan, I wouldn't see they were protesting this.
Right. No, in the 50s, that was pretty run of the mill. No, it was actually the birthing scene where the buffalo births the calf.
Why would they want to protest it? I thought it was one of probably the very intriguing and educational things out there.
Well, here's the problem. And once I read it, it made a little more sense with the time period. But TV was fresh at this time. And let's not forget that I Love Lucy, who, first pregnancy on television, whatever, they couldn't even say the word pregnant because it was, so controversial, because that meant that at one point in time, her and Ricky had sex, and, they slept in separate beds, of course, and all of this. So I guess it was a big deal to find that out. So Disney.
It was pretty graphic.
It was very graphic.
For a second, I was just like, whoa. But then I was just like, what he was explaining, I thought was very interesting.
Yeah. And so Disney, I'm not positive if it was Walt or his brother Roy, because Roy was starting to produce some of these now. But one of them made the statement basically at the time, like, well, we're trying to show things in nature how they really are. I would hope that parents wouldn't want their children to think that a stork brings, calves as well, or something along those lines. So he defended it. They certainly didn't back down, and it wasn't excised from the film or anything. But yeah, the premiere was boycotted. So very bizarre, Tim.
Okay.
But Red Man, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right, so let's hear. That's all I really have about the background. Although I will say, the VHS releases for some reason do edit out about 11 minutes. It's only a 60-minute version on the two VHS releases they had, which was in '85 and again in the mid '90s. I don't know. To me, that says probably an entire segment was just cut.
Yeah.
Probably for time more than anything else. But yeah, for some reason they put it into a 60-minute version for the VHS. But that's what I've got for the background. Let's hear about the Vanishing Prairie, Tim.
Okay. So the Vanishing Prairie. The American prairie was once a vast, wondrous expanse teeming with life. Now, as the march of civilization encroaches, it and all of its creatures are slowly vanishing. The movie takes a look at a handful of the animals that are still persevering in the vanishing American prairie. And that's the basic synopsis.
Yeah. Interesting theme.
Yeah. It is narrated by Winston Hibler again. He did the previous one as well. I think he does maybe one or two more.
Okay. Did he do any of the shorts, you know?
He did a couple of the shorts.
Okay.
I actually looked him up, and he was actually a screenwriter on a handful of Disney movies as well.
Really?
He was one of the, like, I mean, these screenwriter, like, these movies have like 10 screenwriters a piece, like, but he was a screenwriter on Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Sleeping Beauty.
Oh wow, okay, so he was definitely in the Disney wheelhouse.
Yeah, so he narrated this, and he also was a screenwriter for this as well. So he probably wrote everything that he says. So we start off.
The director James Algar, who directed most of the shorts and Living Desert as well.
Okay.
So he's back too.
So we start off with the magic paintbrush again, and it paints the map and the landscapes and kind of explains where the prairie is, which is between the Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountains. So it is a vast area. So that's why when Dan was saying that they filmed it at a bunch of locations, that's why the prairie was a big area.
Yeah.
And then it gives us some information about how wagon trains would cross the prairie and use landmarks of rock formations. Basically, kind of like had images of those, which was kind of interesting. And then we move into, which I thought was the controversial thing, was saying the word red man to describe the Native Americans. But then they did some like animated Native American drawings and used some words to describe Native American words that they would use to describe some of the animals that were in the prairie. And I thought that was, for all the bad things they do towards Native American, I thought that was probably the best thing I've seen them do in these recent movies that have some controversy.
Yeah, I think that was definitely very interesting. And you know, I don't. For some reason, I don't think they thought they were being racist with the Red Man bit and the Peter Pan song, and so I think there is some, you know, reverence there for the Native Americans. So I'm not necessarily shocked that they did it, but yeah, I thought it was a really cool part.
Yeah. And then we start with birds. Probably the most humorous scene in the movie is they had a bunch of ducks trying to land on ice. And I thought that was kind of funny. But then they kind of show the ducks landing on the water, and they had it in like slow motion. I thought that was very amazing.
Yeah, it looked really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess they had some humor with the grouses as well, which they make some weird sounds. I probably would say that was probably not as bad as the hoedown scene with the scorpions from the previous one.
No.
But this was probably the one scene I was just like, okay, we could kind of do without.
The only other thing I thought of with that was a couple times it got a little silly with the music.
Yeah.
The Prairie Dogs digging, it got a little silly. The rabbit chase, And then I thought it was real corny at the end where the rams were like, ramming,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
you know,
and like,
and some sound effects
um,
like that.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
nothing compared to that thing
yeah,
from last.
so the after the whole birds, the first main thing that we get into is the buffalo, which, as Dan mentioned, they show the birthing scenes in that. But I learned a lot about that.
Me too.
You, I did not know that if that there's a membrane over the newborn calf, and the buffalo has to then get it off the face and then eats it, so there's no trace of them. I thought
Yeah.
that was very, very interesting as well. And then I thought it was very cute watching the baby buffalo trying to walk and stand.
Yeah. It's always cute watching the animals try and stand.
Yeah, and then so the buffalo is the symbol for the Vanishing Prairie because at a time there was over 60 million or more buffalo that roamed, and now they are an endangered species. And they at the time they were endangered, and they still are an endangered species. So the theme is that many of these animals are vanishing. One of the earlier birds that we learned about was the whooping crane, which the reason why they are vanishing is they only lay one egg per year, which I
Yeah,
thought
that's
was,
crazy.
yeah. So they don't really talk about the pronghorn antelope. They just say that he's an endangered species. They show a little bit of him, and they can outrun the fastest horse, which I thought was interesting. But then they quickly move on to the bighorn sheep and their climbing abilities, and then they kind of bookend it at the end with them ramming, which I agree. Like I thought I thought that right before that, I thought they had a great whole ending to it, and then all of a sudden they did the big horde ram thing, and I was
Yeah, it was
like,
like the Ram Follies or whatever. It was so
yeah,
corny.
I'm just like, why'd you have to ruin it? So then we move on to the mountain lion, and you see some baby mountain lions, which are very adorable.
This was
I did
my
not,
favorite.
yeah, because you're a cat person.
I love cats. One of my favorite scenes, since you're on this portion, is when the mountain lion like smells the fawn somewhere and sort of like circles around it, and the fawn kind of just hides. And I just thought that was really a great little scene there,
Yeah,
where he ends up giving up and sparing the fawn's life.
yeah.
And
So if you know anything about fawns, they have those like kind of like white spots on their back, and apparently if it lays very still, and that's something that it knows to do, it lays perfectly still, the mountain lion can't really see it, even though as the viewer we're like, it's right there,
yeah,
like
it's like Dora the
expecting it to
Explorer
be
almost.
just a horrible ending, but apparently it just blends in.
Yeah.
um and then apparently the baby kittens, they have spots. Apparently, I did not know that they just lose their spots over time, like
Yeah.
they grow old. And mountain lions will only kill if they need food. So they are
That
not just,
that's one of the few things in this I think I've heard somewhere before. I don't know if maybe I watched one of the short films or whatever in school from this, but yeah, that was one of the things I was like, okay, I remember hearing that somewhere.
yeah. And then after that, we move into a big hunk, which I think is the prairie dogs. Um, Even if we move off of the prairie dogs for a little bit, we come back to the prairie dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they are really the star of the movie, I feel like. They
I would
are
say,
they are the cousin of the ground squirrels, which we learned about a little bit in the Living Desert. Um, and the reason why they're called prairie dogs is they make a little barking noise. And they basically take us through how they build their prairie homes, and they show little babies, and they interacting with bunny rabbits, and the way that they kind of all like work together, like with like the whole alarm system. Anytime like any predator comes, they just all start giving off the noise, and
Yeah.
like they seem really smart. And so there's interactions with them and burrowing owls, interaction with them and rattlesnake, and they kind of all survive all this. And then interaction with them and a pocket gopher, and then there's a black-footed ferret that is also a predator of them. There's prairie falcon. All these things are trying to kill prairie dogs, and somehow they all survive.
Yeah, they survive time.
And then the closest call, we move a little bit away with the coyotes, and they have pups as well, and they are very cute as well. And they hunt the prairie dogs, and the coyote is very patient because they let this badger kind of like start digging, and then they come out of another hole, and then the coyote's right there, and you think this is going to be it, and prairie dog can fight, man.
Yeah.
And then it moves into this whole the storm, the lightning, there's fire, and then there's rain and flood. And I thought that was a really good ending. And then it had like the pup coyotes like howling on this little island, and had like a thing of the moon, and you're like, oh wow, that's a great ending. And then all of a sudden you hear these banging noises, and you have
the rams are back.
These longhorn rams butting heads sound like gunshots. So
yeah,
I don't know. There's a lot of animals. I feel like they focused more on a handful of animals in this one than the last one. I felt like the last one had like a lot more smaller segments, and this one they put a lot of time in the prairie dogs, a little bit into coyotes, a little bit into the mountain lions and the buffalo.
Yeah, I was wondering, and I don't know if this is the case, but I was wondering if maybe because the last one was the first of the full-length ones, that maybe they were all just basically designated to be shorts, and so they all got kind of equal time. And here, maybe Walt wanted to focus more on this, or that particular cameraman got like some really cool stuff, and so since maybe he's not forced into the two reel type shorts, he was able to focus more on things he wanted to. And then, rattlesnakes, okay, we'll give them, 2 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it makes for a more disjointed movie. I don't know. But my guess would be that was why, because the first one was the first full length, or the last one rather was the first full length. And so maybe he was still figuring out how to properly do a full length doc. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, once we get to the prairie dogs, every animal that we talk about is in relation to the prairie dogs. It's
right.
Like, here's a rattlesnake and its interactions with the prairie dogs. Here are the burrowing owls and their interactions with the prairie dogs.
That's like the last half of the movie.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
So I mean, that's why I felt like to cut this down to like 4 educational shorts. Like, you probably have. Maybe the mountain lions, you have the buffalo, and then like you would really have to like cut a lot out of the prairie dogs to make it a short educational thing.
Yeah, I mean, educational shorts aren't more than I don't know, 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then they bore all the children. Let me see if I can hold on. What I pulled up earlier had the actual like names of them.
Oh yeah.
Let me see if I can find that site again. But in the meantime, this is highly regarded, I think, as the best of the shorts or the docs from what I read. What I mean, we've only seen 2, I guess, so far, but for me, this was definitely better than the last one.
Yes. Because I feel like you don't have the stupid hoedown scene.
Right, yeah, that
2, because I mean that really killed. I felt like it killed the first one. But this one, I feel like by having the prairie dogs kind of be the main focus, I felt like it was more of, I don't know, it didn't feel like all scatterbrained like the last one. It felt like it was kind of like a full movie. And I mean, to that point, like, and like that's probably what, like, I feel like the first half of this movie kind of felt like the living desert because you had like bunch of birds in the beginning. It was just like, here's a bird, there's a bird, and talked about them very briefly. And you're like, oh, okay, this is great. But then you kind of move into the buffalo, and that's great. Like, you're like, okay, now it's getting a little better. I could really cut out the birds. I mean, I thought it was very interesting, but I felt like that part was probably didn't really fit with the rest of it.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. That may have been one of the things they cut out when they put it on VHS, when they trimmed a little.
Like, I mean, I much rather have. I mean, if you're going to do the birds, because I mean, they are migrating animals, so yes, they land in the prairie, but I mean,
they're from everywhere.
They're from everywhere, especially you're talking about ducks and geese and stuff like that in the first part. And you're like, okay, well, I see ducks all the time, like.
Right.
It's not like they're special ducks. It's the same ducks. They're just migrating.
Okay, so here are the 4 shorts they made from it, the educational films. The buffalo, majestic symbol of the plains. That makes sense.
Okay.
Small animals of the plains. So that could be maybe the prairie dog bit and how they relate to everybody.
Yeah, I mean...
because the other 2 are also don't say specifically about prairie dogs, so I would say that's where probably the prairie dogs would go.
Okay, but they probably talk about like maybe that ground. They probably have that pocket gopher like that, like kind of digs into their home and stuff like that.
Yeah, I could see that. So then they have pioneer trails, Indian lore, and bird life of the plains. That's all one.
So that's the whole. That's the whole first part.
Yeah, that's the whole first 15 minutes or so. And then large animals that once roamed the plains. Does that include more stuff about the buffalo?
No, it's probably the mountain lion and the coyotes.
And okay, I guess. Mountain lions, though, they still roam the plains, right?
Well, I mean, yeah,
I guess
but
they're
also vanishing, like, because of... I mean, they roam more the mountains on the edge of the plains because of just how they got forced up there.
Yeah, all right, I guess that's true. So you could count them for that. So yeah, that's the 4. So I would assume the prairie dog part is in the second one, the small creatures.
And they probably have a lot out. Well, I mean,
yeah, I would think.
Well, they could probably cut out the whole coyotes with them and use that for the coyotes if the coyotes are included in the large animals.
That's true. Yeah, and they could repeat things too. I mean, you know, not all schools probably bought all 4 of them. I don't know, but all right. So the only negatives I really had for this, like last time, I think we talked about obviously the silly dancing scene, and there were a couple things that didn't seem to match up for me. But for this, I thought other than like the sort of silly music choices that we talked about. There were a couple times I thought the editing was a little like rough, like, and I assume that's probably just from the shots that they were able to get or whatever. But there were some editing things I thought just didn't look very natural at all.
Yeah, one of them that I saw was when we're talking about the birds. It was the pie-billed grebes and their whole nesting. Like the mother was trying to get an egg back into the nest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then it was cut in a way that it kind of jumped a little bit because obviously there was probably a lot of time of her trying to get the egg back in the nest, and they were just kind of shorting it a little bit.
Right. And look, I'm sure it's hard, especially in the 50s, to edit 60 millimeter film, so it's fine. But I didn't notice it quite as much with the last one as I did with this. What else? This was a lot less violent. Like, you know, nature documentaries have a lot of violence in it sometimes. I thought Living Desert had some violence. This, everybody kind of makes it out alive. Like, even in the wildfire scene at the end, the rabbit just goes through and then...
I mean, I mean, compared to the last one, there is a lot less violence. I mean, there are some kind of standoffs, but I feel like the other one did have a couple animal deaths, and I feel like this one only had one. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that
So
I want to see like a bunch of gore in my
yeah.
nature movie, but it made it a little less realistic to me just because it made it seem like it was a little Disney-fied.
I mean, I feel like
But
it's the same thing as last time. Is like you had the cute animals, and they were in peril a couple times, but they survived. And it's the same thing.
yeah,
The prairie dogs are very cute, and they're in peril a bunch of times, but they survive because I get that as a viewer, you don't want to see that, but it happens out
it
there.
does. But death
Um,
happens. I mean, like I
yeah,
think both ends happen, and they're only really showing the happy ending version for
yeah.
everything.
It's like
But you know,
because every and that's the thing is like last time it's the same animals that bite the dust, but in both movies it's the snake because no one
well,
likes
that's
snake.
true. Right, right, because everyone hates a good snake.
I mean,
I
and I mean the last one had a spider that died too. The wasp killed the spider, and no one likes spiders. It's
Everybody
the
hates spiders.
it's the creepy and crawly ones that it's not the cute fluffy ones.
I think it's interesting that Disney doesn't mind murdering Bambi's mother, but
Oh
here,
well, I mean this one they did you didn't see it, but a deer did die off screen, and
true. They
you
talked
see the
about it.
mountain lion dragging the dead body.
Yeah, that was
So
that was pretty gruesome. How about that wildfire at the end, Tim? How timely.
yeah, like
It made me think of some current goings on in the West Coast.
yeah,
So
and,
that's
and it kind of reminded me of Bambi a little bit as well.
a little bit Bambi. Yeah, yeah.
And
See
I was
that.
just I don't I was just thinking like, is this fire real? Like, or is this like a
Made
Disney fire? Like that
Yeah.
they lit on like a back lot somewhere?
I think it was real. I mean,
Okay.
nothing I read said that scene was faked. I mean, they said some of the rain and fog and stuff like we talked about, but yeah, as far as I know, the fire stuff was legit.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. They maybe they buried the records, um, but the thing that it reminded me the most of because it made me think of the California wildfires right now is that these nature documentaries really are fairly timeless, which you can't say for a lot of movies from the 40s and 50s. I mean, maybe some of the Disney ones you can, but I thought pretty much all this information still, I think, is relevant,
Yeah.
which I think
I
is
mean,
awesome.
and I think it's even more relevant today just because of the subject of this is that, and the other one was like the living desert, and not much has changed in the desert. This one, the prairie and these animals are still vanishing. These animals that were endangered then are still endangered now.
Yeah, it's
And
true. 70 years later,
yeah,
almost 55, whatever. Yeah.
like
Yeah, you're right. So I don't know. I mean, that's all I really had. Anything else you wanted to mention before we give a great?
um oh you didn't like the music that accompanied the jackrabbit chase with the coyote, but I
Yeah.
did think that was amazing footage that they had there.
Oh yeah, the shots. Listen, other than some of the editing and stuff, all of the shots are really great. Yes, I thought that was a great chase sequence. I just thought the music didn't add any. I think the music subtracted from the beautiful footage that they got. That's all. No, the footage itself was fantastic. So I would definitely that. I mean,
Some of the footage just it's still is mind-boggling. Some of this footage that they got in the 1950s,
yeah,
like I mean, you saying that this guy dressed up as a buffalo to get close to him. I mean, I guess that's what they had to do. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's definitely utilizing your art. And what's funny is, I mean, they would have shot this, I guess, before he won the Oscar for The Living Desert. But you have to imagine, I mean, the Disney name, and he was already doing some of the Disney, the True Life shorts. you have to imagine he hired just the best nature photographers out there.
Yeah.
You know, and that is proven. I think even more than Living Desert, I think this could be seen now by kids, and get as much enjoyment now as they would have in the 50s.
Yeah, and I like. I feel like this one is a little, because they focus so much on the prairie dogs in the second half of this movie. You kind of get emotional attached to them. That it's kind of like how we were saying the last video, how the new Disney nature ones, they focus on a family, and they give them
Right.
names, and like you follow their journey in life. I felt like this one was kind of like that, and that's what kids that do that for the kids these days, to be involved in the documentaries.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think more
They
than Living
didn't give
Desert.
them names this one, but I felt like they focused on it enough that you're like, okay, I'm kind of emotionally involved with these prairie dogs now.
Yeah, which they definitely didn't in the last one. So I agree with that too. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely. I mean, I've mentioned some negatives, but these are nitpicks. I mean, this is a really great documentary. It's definitely for me like in that A minus kind of range.
Yeah, I gave the last one an A minus, and I thought this one was a slight improvement. I will give it an A. I
Okay,
would give
yeah, I think
for
I
its
gave,
time and for today.
I think I gave the last one a B plus, right?
No, you actually gave it, I think, an A.
No, I didn't give it an A, did I?
Yeah,
All
you
right,
gave
well,
it an A. I gave it an A minus.
all right,
Um,
well, I retract that. I'm a real dummy because this is definitely better than that. But I'm not going to give this like an A plus. I would give that an A minus, I guess, in retrospect.
okay.
Um, but yes, this one I will give an A, even though I certainly have some nitpicks with it. But I mean, for it being 1954, I think maybe for today I might give it slightly less because the editing isn't quite there, you know. But I think people can enjoy this just the same as they did back then.
Yeah,
So and as such, it is available on Disney Plus. That's how we both watched it.
yeah.
And yeah, what a success. So the next one in the series uh, of the nature is the African lion, but that's a few movies away. I think we have certainly 20,000 Leagues coming up,
20,000 Leagues. I
and
think
then
a
we have
Davy Crockett.
Davy Crockett, and then Joe and I will do Lady and the Tramp at some point there. I think after Davy Crockett, and then maybe there's one more before we get to African Lion. I
Yeah,
forget. But yeah, I mean he cranked them out every year, just like he does,
yeah.
or they do this year, or they do now for the Disney Nature Earth Day stuff. So there's one every year through 58, then they do skip a year in the 1960s, the last one.
Yeah.
So we'll get through all the ones we can find. We sort of talked yesterday in person about maybe one or two of these because you said at least one's not on Disney Plus.
I think it's called the White Wilderness or something like that.
Okay,
Maybe
yeah, that's the
that was
58
the one
one.
that I couldn't find on Disney Plus. I mean, maybe that's changed since I've checked, but last time I checked, African Lions on there. I think the one after that one is, I think it's called
Secret
Perry,
Life.
and it's about a squirrel, possibly.
Secret Life is next, and then Perry.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, and look, you know, White Wilderness wasn't until 58. We're probably a couple of months away from that. So
Yeah.
if it's not on Disney Plus, we can try and track it down before that. But all right, another Dan Does Disney in the books. Tim, thank you for joining as always.
Yeah, no
And
problem. And
yeah,
get out there and explore nature, guys.
yeah. Let these kind of be your guide there. So we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.